I think for most teams, with the way that offenses have gone now, with some of the spread stuff that's going on, and those things, if you have one linebacker that kind of take control of the whole group, as long as it's the inside backer, I think you'll be all right. Some teams have gone to that where it's the, you don't want to say the more intelligent or the more savvy of the two, but the guy that has the more leadership in him. So that's the guy that they kind of make take the lead as far as the signals and kind of getting the defense lined up and the down and distance and just kind of getting the whole process together. They put it on one of the inside backers because of kind of the nature of offenses that you go against nowadays.
He was saying, Brandon Heath was saying that he's not a guy accustomed to talking a lot out there. How much have you guys had to coach him up to be as vocal as he's going to need to be?
I think he always had it in him. I think the biggest thing was he wasn't forced to do it. Like I said, they were a senior group last year, and they had some guys who were productive in what they did. So he was never asked to do it. And now, obviously, with some of the younger guys around him, we've asked him to take that role. And he's never going to be a rah-rah guy that's going to get in guys' faces. But he understands the defense probably better than anyone on the defense. So we just asked him to just, share that with the rest of the defense. So I think that when we put it that way, he understood we weren't going to put him on a soapbox and make him, give a pregame speech. We just wanted him to take the leadership of the defense.
And lastly, for me, talk about Daniel Brown. What has he done that has put himself in a position to be top of that depth chart?
Production. It still comes down to if we're going to be truthful to what we've said, and when Coach Strong came in here, what he preached to the team is the most productive kids and the guys that give us the best chance to win are going to play, and that's what he's done. He's been productive in making game-changing plays as far as sacks and interceptions and caused fumbles and fumble recoveries and pressures. He plays very fast for a young guy, and like I said, the biggest thing is he's been a little more productive than the other guys that have played that position.
Tell me about Preston Brown. What has he shown you so far in ball practice?
First of all, he's a pretty big kid. He comes in and he's the biggest linebacker we have. He's upwards of 240 pounds. Not a sloppy 240 pounds. He's a pretty solid big kid. And one of the things that we struggled at last year was stopping the run. That he has the body type of a good run stopping middle linebacker, and he's kind of taken to that. We're not asking him to do much. We're asking him to kind of clog up the middle. And when we get into a sub package, obviously he's not going to be able to when it's time to stop the run and people are trying to pound us between the tackles. That's kind of where his number's been called, and he's answered.
John L. Smith used to talk about getting those first off the bus guys that they get off the bus and the other team goes, whoa, look at that. Could he be that kind of guy in a couple of years?
Well, we think so. He's got the frame to be a 250-pound linebacker, but he's an athletic kid. What everybody thinks, a guy that can stop the run, but he's athletic enough to help him in pass coverage. So he's got potential to be a very, very good player. He's still young, and we have to understand sometimes when we get after him that he's still 17 years old, and really, in actuality, he probably should still be a senior in high school. Around here, that's nothing new after Moby came by, so that's not an excuse. But we feel like he's mature for his age, and we thought the situation was going to be too much for him. Playing in front of the crowd the first game, we definitely wouldn't put him out there. But right now, he's kind of taking that role and hasn't faltered at all, and we think he's got a chance to really help us, especially versus the run on Saturday.
So he's actually 17 now.
Yeah, he's 17 right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How small is this defensive front seven as opposed to ones that you've helped coach in the past? Is this the smallest?
It's not the smallest. It's all, you don't want to say, it's not the biggest, obviously. But instead of saying undersized, we have guys who are, bigger guys, but they're, transition guys. We have, Greg Scruggs, who's playing inside, who wasn't in last year. You have Tim Hyde and Fallon, who are guys that were, rotational guys last year but didn't play. So it's just, with our system, we're a movement system. So with the bigger guys, when they're moving laterally, sometimes they can't get that anchor, get that foot in the ground. And, we might play a little lighter than our weight shows. But, it's relative, probably not relative to the conference. A big running conference. So it's just like we were just talking about Preston. You're always looking for the prototype of that position. Everybody wants Ted Washington to play tackle and be able to run sideline to sideline at 6'7", 350 pounds. Does everybody have those guys? Obviously not. So You know, you're always searching for that guy that can do everything for you. And obviously, the bigger you are in the middle, and that's what Coach Strong's used to, obviously coming from the SEC, the better you feel, you know, you're going to be at stopping the run, which obviously is our #1 goal on defense. You want to clog those running lanes, and that's why we feel like we're a little undersized, but it's still all relative to what we do and, you know, what probably a lot of other teams would accomplish that.
You talked about movement. I mean, a half a second before the snap, will guys stop? I mean, when you talk about movement before the snap, I mean, when is sort of the deadline on when you, all right, let's stop this guys and make sure what we do or whatever? I mean, how do you?
I think the biggest thing is it's just with everything else, and everybody does the same thing. Everybody has the same type of movements. Everybody does them at different times. But I mean, at the end of the day, what you're saying is right. At some point, you're gonna have to line up, play base defense. They're gonna know where you are. You're gonna know what play to run. It still comes down to beating the block, and it still comes down to man on man. Somebody's got to win. It's you know, meeting and defeating the block on defense, and can they block them on offense? So we do move a little bit, but at the end of the day, are we going to do anything that Kentucky hasn't seen, anybody in this conference hasn't seen? No. You still have to have guys that can get off the block and make a play.
How much, when you are not as big as the other guys, I mean, how much of it is it just about resolve and just about, I mean, you know, and sticking with it and not, you know, because they're going to not try to just run one time and say, oh, we'll get 2 yards and give up. I mean, they're going to go at you 28, 30 times. I mean, how important is it just sort of having that sort of?
It's a mentality. I mean, it definitely is. And I know Coach Strong has mentioned they were undersized in Florida, but yet they were, I think, #1 or #2 in the country in total defense, because those guys had an attitude, even though they might have been undersized, that they weren't going to remain blocked. And that's what we're trying to get here. You know, you watch them on film, you know, the guys last year, I'm talking about Florida, and, you know, there were sometimes the offense knew what they were in and they were able to block it. They had somebody get off the block and make a play. And that's the kind of defense we're trying to build here. It's never going to be the scheme. I know there's some guys that get a lot of credit for scheme, and, you know, and probably rightfully so, but at the end of the day, you're not going to always out-scheme the offense on every play. You got to have somebody get off of a block and make a great play and make a solid tackle, and that's what we're hoping to build here, and that's what I think we're building toward.
Scruggs talked a lot about yesterday, and some of the other guys have talked about be trying to put on weight in the offseason. I mean, Scruggs talked about he put on 25 pounds or whatever. At this point, though, is it like we got him to X and we hopefully try to keep him at that throughout the season, because, I mean, obviously the work is so much more rigorous, you know, in the games and that stuff. Or can you add weight during the season, or is it
you can. I think the biggest thing with our guys is you want to get them to where they're at a manageable weight.
Right.
You know, during the summer, obviously it's not the same tempo. They're not burning the calories that they do during the season. So you try to get them as big as they can be and be functional. And then during preseason, which is what most people do, you get them to the weight where you think they're going to be adequate enough to play the position and be successful. So they're not going to really, not many of guys that play a lot to gain weight during the season. So you try to get them to that weight where they're adequate, and that's why a lot of them try to gain weight, during the summer, where if they lose 5 to 8 pounds during preseason, now they're at a good weight where they're able to play and try to stay there during the season.
Thanks, Coach.